This is episode 50 of the Steady Trade podcast with your hosts, Tim Bowen.
In my opinion, really the golden age, and the golden age will come back.
And Stephen Johnson.
I don't even have a pattern that I like. I can't even understand a pattern that works. Don't talk to us about what the market's doing. I can't even find a single pattern.
Today, Tim and Stephen talk strategy.
The main topic today is kind of what times of day to target.
And a little bit of U.S. history.
Lots of times you're wrong in your facts, but I do like the way
I've been to Boston.
You said you're pretty sure the Boston Tea Party happened in Boston. I do like the way you kind of thought it through, yeah.
But all joking aside, when are the best times of day to trade?
I could watch the open, I could kind of see what was going on, but I would always focus on that late day.
All that and more on today's episode. But first, let's dip into the listener mailbag. Today's question comes from Jamil in Quebec, who was recently featured on episode 47 of the Steady Trade podcast. And Jamil asks, "Hey Stephen, have you read my book yet? Seriously, man, what gives?"
We have Jamil from Quebec who asks, "I recently wrote a book called The Complete Penny Stock Course. Learn how to generate profits consistently by trading penny stocks. Have you guys read it yet? If not, what's your problem? If so, what do you think about it? It's great, right? Right?"
I'm confident Stephen hasn't read it yet because there isn't an audio book format, since I think he is functionally illiterate. I have read it, and it's great. Actually, I've got a – yeah, well, I would hope so. Have you looked at the back cover? I'm on the back cover. So, no, great stuff. What I really, really like about it is, Jamil is an engineer, and he has that engineer mindset. And the best thing I can say is it's as close to a textbook of penny stocking. It is very well structured, steps you through. There's quizzes, there's worksheets. It's a really well thought out approach to low price stocks, which, as far as I know, there's never been anything like that in the penny stocking world. There's been plenty of books about it, but nobody took that more disciplined, well structured approach. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I got sent the PDF and I haven't opened it yet. But the reason for it is because, from my understanding, it's going to be a big kind of overview of the whole kind of what the challenge was. I think what he's done is he's put everything from the challenge into an academic textbook.
Correct.
Which is awesome. And it's like 1/1,000,000th of the price of the challenge or something. It's like
well, and that's what I think is maybe
crazy.
I'm guessing if you're a long time listener of Steady Trade, I'm an avid reader. In my opinion, I think the book is $25, $29. The value you get out of that, I mean, come on. I always say this about any book. If you get one idea out of a book that's $20 or $30, that's an incredible value. And I think you'll get a lot more than one good idea out of this book. I say, if you're a new to intermediate trader interested in low price stocks, it's a no-brainer for $25 or $29 or whatever it costs.
Yeah, totally agree.
Now you got to have the discipline to actually read it, unlike Stephen. But
what I found though as well was, as I've learned stuff, sometimes I'm like, once you've just got to narrow your focus so much when you're learning, because there's so many people telling you so many different things. Sometimes you're going to be like, nah, I'm not listening to any of it. I'm just going to focus on these three things over and over and over and over until I nail them.
Yeah, I've got a presentation on my YouTube from one of Sykes' old penny stocking conferences from probably 6 years ago, where I gave an entire presentation about that. I think it's titled "Ignore the Noise." And there comes a point where you reach a certain, you need to take as much information from as many sources as possible in the beginning. But then there's like this tipping point where you need to shut a lot of that off and just be ideally your StocksToTrade platform and your spreadsheets, and, shut off Twitter, shut off chat rooms, and really focus. So you make a very good point there.
Yeah, no, that's exactly where I was at. For me, that's exactly where I'm at. I'm like, I'm seeing these things and I just need to study them and explore them and learn them in greater detail on my own. I'm at that point where I'm like, I'm like flying like a bird.
But that's that tipping point I talk about, because if you're totally new today listening to this podcast, you've got to you've got to get a lot of information first. So once you start getting to that point where you start feeling consistent, that's when dial it back. Yeah, shut off all the noise.
But saying that though, you've been taking week open right to greens for every episode of StocksToTrade Pro I've ever seen, and I've never felt comfortable with it until I've just all of a sudden saw in the data that I've tracked, shit, this happens on these kind of stocks all the time. And I'm like, this is what Tim's doing all the time. But you need to learn that setup yourself. You need to get the idea from you and then find out the little intricacies of when it works and when it doesn't.
For sure. Yep.
Hey there, Steady Trade listeners. Want to know how guys like Tim Grittani and Tim Bowen followed in the footsteps of Tim Sykes, earning financial security and beyond by day trading penny stocks? Do you want to see if you have what it takes, even if your name isn't Tim? Then why not check out the Timothy Sykes Trading Challenge, where you can be personally mentored by these guys and other successful traders. If you're interested and if you have what it takes, go to timothysykes.com and let them know that you want to work directly with Tim Sykes today.
Welcome back to the Steady Trade Podcast. Back with my co-host, Steven Johnson. Got a topic that I think is very applicable to a lot of really everybody, but particularly our listeners, those of you that are getting started in trading. And the majority of you, now maybe I'm wrong, but I'm confident based on the comments, the majority of you have other commitments, whether that be a job, whether that be school, kids, maybe you're working second shift, you're working afternoons, maybe. And, a big welcome to all of our international listeners as well, because we get a lot of comments from people saying they're in different countries. Maybe you're in a different time zone and it's the middle of the night when the U.S. markets are open. So the main topic today is kind of what times of day to target. I was a part-time trader for 6 years. So I dealt with having a business, having a family, and trying to work learning trading and work being a consistently profitable trader into that routine. So I think, this is something I get asked about a lot. A lot of the comments, a lot of Twitter is, hey, I got a job with a boss watching me. How can I trade? How can I learn how to trade? So that's our main topic for today, how to approach the day. And I think it comes in handy. I'm in Eastern time zone, which makes it nice because the markets are Eastern time zone. But Steven is, 5 hours ahead in Dubai. So he primarily focuses on the open. So I think that will be, some good insight for a lot of you guys that are in other time zones as well.
Yes, Tim, and thank you so much for such a riveting precursor to today's episode. I think that really, really set the scene. And I'm really grateful for that. I think as we get more experienced in this podcast and as the influence grows, so does our ability to communicate fresh, new, innovative ideas and provide great precursors to them. So just great start.
I take it precursor was on your word of the day calendar? Or?
Actually, riveting was. It's riveting. It's so riveting. I'm riveted, guys. I'm so freaking riveted. Riveted was. I just like to be astute with some of the language I use, and riveting was the top one. But yeah, I mean, the biggest, hardest thing for American human people is that a lot of them cannot trade because they're at work when the markets are open. And the biggest blessing on being an expat trader is that you'll always find some window that you can trade at. And it doesn't really matter what the window is, if it's the start of the trading hours or if it's the end of the trading hours. It doesn't really matter. There's really opportunities for both. And as you'll see between you and I, there's a lot more than meets the eye other than the age and the expertise in trading. There's also we trade different times generally, or you trade a lot of the afternoons more than me.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest, and this really goes back to, again, my history. I think maybe a lot of the listeners know, but I mean, I got started actively day trading 2007, 2008. I had a business at that point. So, we had 20 employees. We were a service business. So really the busiest part of the day was kind of the morning, because you're getting all the jobs lined up. You're getting all the appointments lined up. You're getting the troops rallied, for lack of a better term. So I had always been, I could watch the open. I could kind of see what was going on, but I would always focus on that late day. And especially, I talk about back in the day a lot. We were looking at in that 2007 to 2012 window where, in my opinion, really the golden age, and the golden age will come back, but the golden age for late day fades. So many of these stocks that we see now that spike into the close, it was the inverse back then. You could watch the big gainers early, make your watch list, write your plans, come back, see which ones of those were kind of fading into the close, short them if they had weak price action with fading volume, and very consistently they would crack late day. So it's that late day, even though I'm way more bullish, way more inclined to go long now, that late day has always been, I guess, my sweet spot, for lack of a better term.
And yeah, and I mean, for me, and for a lot of people, you've got to be very, very careful. And this is something that kind of happened to me recently. You've got to be careful when you balance too many things, because for a lot of people, if you're working an 8-hour job, you don't, even if you can work 8 hours at the market, you kind of shouldn't. I mean, it's good to get as much experience as you can and to do it every now and then. But if you do like 16 hours, if you try and force to do 15, 16, 17 hours, you'll either be tired and you'll make a mistake, or you'll feel like you're going to get burnt out and you'll just do stuff because you'll force stuff just to think that you should be doing stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, a mistake so many make is if you sit there from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., you're like, geez, I've been here for 9 hours. I have to make a trade or I wasted my time. And that gets many, many, many in trouble because, we talk about it a lot. It's like often in trading, trying too hard, like, I have to make a trade, will get you in trouble more times than not.
And it's also like, I mean, say for example, we were England and it was back in what kind of era could this have been? Like, say the 18, when was the American Revolution? Like the 1800s or something? 1780?
Well, 1776 is when we declared independence from you terrible, oppressive people.
So say it's 1776 and I'm the English on one side of the river in Boston, where I think the famous Boston Tea Party revolution happened, and you're on the other side of the bridge.
Lots of times you're wrong in your facts, but I do like the way you said you're pretty sure the Boston Tea Party happened in Boston. I do like the way you kind of thought that through. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to, as a riveting precursor, I don't want to make the mistake that the Boston Tea Party wasn't in Boston in case it was somewhere else. I mean, it could have been in Texas. And then it was the Boston Tea Party, 595. I'm so bad. That was so bad. But say, for example, it's the Boston Tea Party. And the English are like, we've been on guard for 9 hours and I'm really tired. I'm really feeling a bit tired. I've been on guard for 9 hours. But you Americans are like, you've just woke up. You're super fresh and you storm it. Now we're going to get ran down because we're tired. And when a dangerous situation hits us, we're already tired, so we're more liable to make more mistakes. Now, that's a long-winded analogy for basically saying that if you wait all day or you're tired or you've been working and then you trade for 6 hours, once you make the mistake, you're more likely to let that mistake go out of control and let that mistake go worse and worse and worse because you haven't got your A game on.
Yep. Yeah, I think, and I've done a lot of webinars, a lot of the videos like on my own YouTube channel, my own blog and stuff. I mean, I haven't updated it in forever, but I talk about that kind of, for lack of a better term, the on it total human optimization type idea. I mean, rest, exercise, nutrition. I mean, trading is very, very stressful, just like your military analogy there. And I mean, if you're tired and you're overworked and you're not all there. Next thing you know, you make a mistake, and that happens in trading a lot. And that's why, I'll kind of go into the daily routine that I followed as a part-time trader, and then we'll kind of go into how you approach the day. But so what I did, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but for years and years, I was up at 5 a.m. because I was always, I had kids. I was always kind of in bed early. But you can do this the night before. I mean, if you're more of a night owl. Now, I've always preferred the early morning hours because you get that late. A lot of the news will come out, not very often, but you'll get the futures markets that react to foreign markets and stuff like that. So I would always like to be up early and start reading the news, looking at the top gainers from the day before. I mean, that's something we talk about back in season 1. As a new trader, you're looking at the top gainers every day. That's where you start. And then the nice part about that early morning hours, everybody's asleep. Markets aren't trading. There's not a bunch going on. You can spend that time. You can, I used to print out articles, highlight them, mark them up, break them down, and then start deciding if I wanted to trade that stock today. Now, again, going back to those days, I was 99% a short seller. So I was looking for that dubious news, sketchy press releases, vague terms. We talk about, contract wins with no numbers or unnamed parties and stuff like that. So I would start looking at those stocks to potentially short them. I'd print out the chart. I'd make out key resistance levels because I wanted to see those stocks spike into the resistance and fail. I'd make my plan. I'd write on that chart the area I wanted to short, my stop, and then I would basically go about my day, come back 1:30, 2 p.m., get out those sheets, and start looking for the stocks that I had identified as potential shorts that were fading into the close. Some days it was none of them. Some days it was 5 of them. Some days it was 1 or 2. But I would pick the one, ideally, that I like the most. I don't recommend as a new trader taking more than one momentum day trade position at a time. But that was what worked for me. And to me, even though it's short bias, it's the same process today. If you've got that job where you got to be there at 8, you got to be there at 9, get up early, do your research, write on those charts, man. I love doing it by hand. And then if you're still at work at 2 o'clock, duck into the closet, check your smartphone and look for those trades that are hitting your level. And that, I think, is the best approach as a newer trader.
Yeah, and I think one interesting kind of point is that you kind of talked about was it depends on what market it is. And if it's a very kind of low volume, slightly bearish market, you have to be up earlier. You're going to kind of miss the opportunities because as a short seller in a slightly low volume, more bearish market, these stocks, when they spike pre-market at 6 o'clock in the morning, they're not coming back. They're not coming back often. So you need to wait for it to look like the backside. And I was making good money just waiting for the spike to look like it was on the backside, wait for a head and shoulders pattern, wait for a lower high. And you just take the lower high, risking off the high of the day. And this is an extremely risky strategy and across the board, across the year, and it's never going to work long term. But in a specific market, it will work over and over and over again. And then you can take some of your profits and then short the high of day spike at the open. 9 times out of 10, it's going to fail. You can cut it out over high of day, and you can make some good money doing that. So in a more bearish, low volume market, you have to be up at 6, or you're not going to have any shorts because it's kind of the early bird catches the worm. But then for me, in a bullish market, in the market that we've just seen, it is almost better to not even be there until 9:30, 10 o'clock, because by the time it's 10 a.m. and then you read the news, you digest it, you look at what's running, you do your research, you look into the filings. By the time 10:30 hits, there might potentially be good shorts. Mm-hmm. And you've missed the danger hour of them parabolic and halting and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point is, recognize seasonality and recognize how things change. And, one of the reasons we, in StocksToTrade Pro, we watch the SPY, we watch the QQQ, we watch the Dow, very, very infrequently will we trade S&P futures, but we're mainly just watching that to get a sentiment of what the market is doing. And I mean, if you're gapping down hard, then you can start saying, oh, okay, hey, where's the morning spikers? I want to short these. Market's gapping up hard. You're like, whoa, back off. Wait till midday, late day.
But and that's one thing that so many people don't realize. And it's like, for some reason, you don't get it until after you've traded more than a year for most people.
Yeah, and I'm going to interrupt you, and I know where you're headed. And that's why I think this goes back to why we called this steady trade is, I mean, you have to see this seasonality play through. I mean, if you think you're like, I've traded 1 month and I know it all, good luck. So go ahead and finish.
But that's the whole thing, though. You'll get a lot of traders, and especially in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months of learning, and they're like, I don't even have a pattern that I like. I can't even understand a pattern that works. Don't talk to us about what the market's doing. I can't even find a single pattern. So it's like stages of progress. And the way I would categorize it is, you think that you're going to nail trading, and then you see the market and freeze and think, shit, I don't have a clue what's going on. And then you start to kind of see patterns, and then you'll find one pattern that just works for you. And it's probably because you've lost on it consistently that you play it the other way. So maybe you're trying to short morning spikers, and then you think, the next time I see a clean chart with high volume on a low float, not shorting it, I'm just going to go long. Or the next time you see a lot of stocks when they've gap filled, once they do gap fill, you think, oh, I might take it short if it's low volume on that day because it looks like it's run out of steam. Like generally, you'll probably play it wrong and you'll do the opposite. But once you've got one pattern down, and then maybe you've got a second pattern down, then stuff with the market starts clicking, and you start thinking, the patterns don't work anymore. And I think this is how you find out the market sentiment. You think, me patterns don't work anymore. Why don't they work anymore? Why are they running more than they did before? Why aren't they not running as much as they did before? And slowly, you tweak on to how the market's changing.
Yeah, I think, it's like that. I mean, it's like you see all of those like learning or success charts where it's like people think the chart is, success chart is linear from, lower left to upper right. And then they got like the scribble. I think learning trading is a lot like a volatile stock chart. I mean, it's like you nail a couple trades your first month, you're up here, then you get crushed, then you're down here. But, the idea is keep learning, keep documenting. And while that chart's going to be jagged, try and keep progressing to the upper right. And that's why we talk about journaling. That's why we talk about tracking your trades. And like you said, recognize, don't have that tunnel vision. Be like, hey, I've been shorting, every time I saw some junky biotech up 40%, spiking into resistance, I'd short it, and it was working 3 out of 4 times. But now it's not working at all. And you need to be able to get that experience to recognize, wait, this isn't working anymore. Maybe I look to buy them, or vice versa. So.
But whatever you do, don't get angry and feel unlucky that it didn't work and go even harder the next time. Just whatever you do, don't do that, because that's when you're really screwed. You should never fight a trend, but more importantly, you should definitely never fight a market. And I really learned that the hard way. And it's funny because the thing with me was, I could arguably say I'm the best trader I've ever been right now because I've got more knowledge than I've ever had before, and I've learned more lessons than I've ever had before. But my confidence is probably one of the lowest it's ever been. Not that anything more terrible has happened recently. It's just, it takes, once you hit a bad stage, it's going to take time to rebuild. And I'm not losing anymore, but it's going to take time to rebuild. But it's amazing, though, how I can be even better than I've ever been before, but have such low confidence when you think of 4 months ago, I knew less, but I thought I was on top of the world and I was going to make it. And that's the example of the emotional waves that you can go through. And you are steadily increasing, but you can't think you're going to have success too fast. You can't expect success too fast. It's just not the way it is.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned it on the podcast a few times, but it's one of it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Look that up. It's like many traders get there where they think, 1 month in, they're like, man, I know everything. And then you get humbled real quick. But I think it happens to everybody. The biggest thing is, like you said, when you hit that rough patch, don't start doubling down. Don't start increasing your positions. Recognize and do the exact opposite. When you hit that bad patch, scale back and trade smaller until you start recognizing something that's starting to work again.
Yeah, and I think the one big thing that I really learned as well is never put too much pressure on yourself to succeed. Like, you'll succeed when you succeed. When it works, it'll work. If the universe thinks that, when the universe, I wish I'd said that out the first time. When the universe thinks that you deserve it, the world will serve it. Ultimately, and a lot of
that
the
would
time,
have been, that I like the rhyme.
He will edit it.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, but man, you just completely botched it. So
yeah, really.
And you probably stayed up all night practicing that, didn't you?
I wrote it like 100 times on a Word document. I was like, the podcast is tomorrow. I need to have a killer line. Do you know what I mean? Like, I need to have a killer line for the podcast because I need to keep my stature and reputation up. And this is the pump.com.
And then it was like football. You broke away from the defense.
Felt too stressed.
You were wide open. And the ball just went through your hands. Yeah.
Like, I was rehearsing it this morning. And then I should have known better because I was feeling a little bit queasy and I threw up this morning. Thinking, what if I don't say it right? And I ended up being sick everywhere. And then the pressure just built up too much and I started feeling dizzy and it didn't come out. So that's a real disappointment.
So what I want to know is, and I don't think we've ever really talked about this. So I kind of gave a quick snapshot of my day back when I was a part-time trader. Now, how
are you going to talk about my ex-girlfriend?
No.
When you're saying I don't think we've ever talked about this, I thought we're going to get into how things failed with her. It's like, you want to talk about that on the podcast? I don't think you're going to bring it up right now.
There's probably nothing I care less about than that. So anyway, give me what's like a snapshot of your day. So how do you, because, obviously, like, you're working and then are you trading at work? Or, I mean, we won't tell your boss, but I mean, is the market open after you're done? Like what's your daily routine? So,
I mean, normally I'll wake up on a wet bed that I've urinated in a bottle of rum by the side of the drawer, open, spilled onto the floor. And I'll just think I've done it again.
And then you say, I'm never doing this again.
I've done it again. How did it happen again? I've done it again. And then there's like a tiger in the cupboard and a naked girl on the floor. And I'm like, oh, gotta stop this. Someone's going to find out. No. Generally, my day starts with, I'm be at work. I've been much more flexible recently. I mean, there's been so many pitches in the advertising industry that I've been working kind of 9 till 6, 9 till 7, 9 till 8 at work, and the market opens here at 5:30. So this entire week I've missed because just if I.
I mean, kind of back to when. I mean, we don't need to talk about this week. Like, kind of back when. Yeah, normal schedule.
But usually, I mean, I used to when I was working more full time. I would like sneak StocksToTrade on. I would sneak it on. I'd be a little naughty boy. I'd like look for the corner in the office because obviously if you've got people behind you, they can see. So I'd look for the corner and I'd like put up StocksToTrade, and whenever I had money in a trade, I would just pray that no one has to go into a meeting. I'd just pray that no one has to go into a meeting or call. But yeah, I mean, the market opens 5:30, yeah. So I would kind of boot up StocksToTrade when just at work. I would look at the top 3% gainers, and I would just look at the history. I'd say, have these stocks failed before? Do they have overhead resistance? Are they already trading pre-market? Too much volume, that's going to be an indicator that they could break through that resistance level. And then after that, I'd say, is the news bullshit or not? Is it legit, or is it like we've got this big name dealer, but we're not going to say who they are? It's an industry leader, but we're not going to say it. And then I generally look at the filings and see, and I just say, have the other company that needs money, or have they made money? And depending on the market, if the market's bullish, then I'd not touch it and I'd run home. I'd finish work at 6, run home, pray that it was still hadn't come down yet, and then I'd look for an entry to short a lower, higher, or head and shoulders pattern. And on a bullish market, I would take the trade there and then. If the market's more bearish, I would just slowly average in. This was in the days when I was a bit more risky. I'd just be firing in very small positions to catch the top because you know that the market's bearish, the news is rubbish, the company needs money, it's got a history of failing. There's so many bearish indicators that if the volume's not high, it's just not going to run. So I'm just going to build into the top.
So most days you were probably done like what, 10:30, 11 Eastern, roughly?
Always.
Okay.
I mean, when I was running well, I would take $300, $400 in the first 5 minutes of the day, and then I'd be done.
Nice. Okay.
Have a few beers, go out on a night out, meet some friends.
And then you loop back to the empty bottle of rum and soak mattress.
And then I just do it all over and over and over again. but no, like my trading schedule is always Eastern time. It's always 7:30 till 9:40. In a bearish market, it's 7:30 till 10. In a bullish market, it's like 8:30 to 11. That's it. Never see the afternoon. Never see past 11. I'm always doing the podcast with yous after that.
So I think that's a
when I'm averaging up on a loser. No, that's the only time I trade after 11.
Which is a valuable lesson. Notice what he said. I think I kind of talked over him, but he's like, the only time he trades past the morning is when he's in a losing position and adding to a losing position.
And I'm sitting till market close, being, please come down, please come down, please come down, please come down.
So I think that's a great point I wanted to get at. So Stephen and I are trading. Lots of times we're trading the same stocks, and we're trading the most volatile stocks. And he's doing it early in the morning. I'm looking to do it late. The point is, those are the times of day you want to target. Try and avoid the midday low. I don't care what market it is. That 10 to 1:30 window, that's when you bust ass at work. So again, back to when I was part-time, I would try and watch the morning. I would try and keep track of the stocks that were moving. Sometimes I would trade. And then at 10 o'clock, man, I shut that laptop and I humped it. I got after it. Okay. If I had 50 emails and 10 calls to make, bam, 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 you work your ass off through the midday and then you're back late days. So really focus on early and late and avoid the midday lull. Do your research early in the morning, do your research late at night, but whatever you can do to kind of work your schedule, maybe even tell your boss, hey boss, give me an hour from 9 to 10 and an hour from 2:30 to 3:30, and man, I promise I will bust ass outside that window. But those are the times in these volatile stocks that you want to target.
No, and I totally believe, like, when you're learning how to trade and when you're in the first 12 to 18 months, it's so difficult to get your head around anything anyway, that it's so much easier and it's so much better and more efficient to just master one time period. So just master the first hour of the day, master the last hour of the day. Look for patterns that happen at the end of the day or the start of the day. So if you've only got the first hour of the day, think, are stocks spiking right now? And if they are, I'm going to look for a low float, high volume stock with a reasonably good catalyst. I'm going to try and get these spikes. And then you need a little strategy within that to think, I'm going to buy the dip or the first green candle after the red candle to make a new high, or whatever it is. But then if you're trading, or if it's a bearish market thing, I'm going to short any pre-market high rejection. And that's the trade. I'm going to trade half an hour a day and I'm going to master this. And then if you're trading at the very end of the day, just think, well, I'm going to look at for overextended stocks that have broke down in the afternoon to shorten. Maybe I'll hold them over. If it's a bullish market, think, well, I'm going to look for a stock on its first green day with big volume and a low float. I mean, you can easily adapt a strategy and just do one thing.
Yeah, I think always less is more, for sure.
And that's the paradox. I mean, you are saying that trading is very stressful, and it's such a paradox because it shouldn't be, but it is. Because trading, I just don't get it. Like, I mean, like, obviously I've been struggling recently and I don't get it. I'm like, it's the most simple thing in the world once you know what you're doing. It's so simple. Like, trade really small, especially in a bullish market. It's like trading quarters until you really feel like it's the backside, and then average in. How can I not do it? I feel like a moron that I can't do it. My last trade was Pixie. It was first green day, high volume earnings win, and I shorted a pre-market. And then I just thought, no, Stephen, you're done. I took $100 loss. I'm like, you're doing mental stuff. You're doing mental stuff. Just stop.
Yeah, I tell you, it is truly, you know, but ultimately we're humans, and that's where the emotions come in, and that's where the breakdowns and discipline come in. But the beauty of it is, I mean, the reason these stocks the reason they spike so much and they drop so fast is because of animal spirits, because of human emotion. So that is, I mean, you are your own worst enemy. I mean, I've stole this saying, but I mean, the only thing you can control in the market is how much you lose. Other than that, you enter your setup, you watch for patterns, and you can't control how much you make, but you can control how much you lose. And that's your number one job as a trader, is sticking to that plan, sticking to that stop loss.
And it's funny, and that's the thing, like the most poetic, beautiful thing about the stock market is it's people's rawest emotions playing out live in front of you. And when you see a stock going absolutely bananas, this is humans behaving like maniacs. It's shorts being so mental that they're just not covering until it's too late. And it's longs being absolute maniacs, chasing, just hoping that it's going to go higher. Mm-hmm. It is insane to see it play live when you understand it more.
Yeah, and I think that's the importance of having that long-term mindset. You have to see this stuff happen over and over again to get better at saying, okay, this stock's up 300%. I'm not going to buy it at the top. I'm going to wait for it to pull, consolidate, and then re-break. Or just like, you know, you're short bearish. I'm not going to, when this thing's making new highs, I'm not going to pile in short. I'm going to let this thing settle off, start to pull. Now it may re-rip on you, and that's where you stop out, but you need to at least let the thing, at least for a couple minutes, I mean, I prefer longer, but at least let it set a top, then enter, and then that reclaim of the high is your stop. I mean, that's kind of your strategy. But if you're like, if this thing's on 1 minute candles and just making new highs, I mean, you're never going to, you might win sometimes, but you're never going to be consistent trying to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, and I did pretty well with my strategy. It's just when the market gets too bullish, you just get wiped out. And once you do, though, I mean, it's just a fact. When the market gets too bullish, and I'm not the only one who gets wiped out, all the other shorts get wiped out as well. But and that's the real lesson. If I can come around that, then I'm sure I'll be fine. But it's recognizing the change in the market is so paramount.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where your tracking comes in. That's where your journaling comes in. And that's where you review at the end of the day. And that's what's, you know, back when I was part-time trader, once the end of the day came, one of the biggest reasons I scribbled on all those charts, I had 3-ring binders, tons of binders. I didn't have binders full of women like Mitt Romney does, but I did have binders full of charts. And, you know, I would review those. And even if you couldn't trade, because maybe you got hung up at work, maybe you had to go pick the kids up, review what you were thinking and see if they were working. Then tomorrow, reattack. But don't just throw your charts away. Don't throw your plans away just because you couldn't trade.
No, and I mean, and just going back to the kind of the market sentiment as well, if you think, well, how do I recognize market sentiment? Think, well, if in general stocks are gapping up 30%, and they're spiking to 40% and then they're failing, then the likelihood is in general, they're going to gap up 30% the next day and spike to 40% as long as there's no anomaly or some crazy news or something like that. If we're in a market where they're gapping up to 80% and running to 300%, you can probably guess the next day it's probably going to gap up to 80% and run to 300%. So don't try and short a stock up 50% pre-market at 7 o'clock because it might run 300% on the day. And this is the stupid stuff that I didn't realize. Unfortunately and fortunately, because I know it now. But these are very important things. These are very important lessons. And I think what will happen is people will hear this now and then they'll probably take some losses and I'll be the angel in someone's ear. We had an analogy. But it's true though, do you know what I mean? Because with you on StocksToTrade Pro, there were so many things that you told us and then I made the same mistakes. And I'm like, that's what Tim's talking about. That's what he's talking about. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know you know, I think back to the podcast and, you know, it was like we'd talk about stuff and then you'd be like, yeah, you did say that. And again, I'm not trying to say I'm somehow all knowing. I've just been around the block. I mean, 10 years, I've seen a lot. I haven't seen it all. Nobody's seen it all. But I mean, these things kind of repeat. You see the same trends over and over again.
How do you find that you keep your discipline in check for so long? Do you still feel waivers in your discipline?
Well, I mean, hey man, I still screw up as much as anybody. I mean, that, the biggest thing is, trading. I talk about this all the time. I mean, it's about mistakes. I mean, nobody's perfect. It's like, I use the analogy all the time of the best hitter in baseball gets a hit 3 out of 10 times. I mean, but basically where the experience comes in is you're like, wait, I've been here before. I've seen this before. I'm getting bullheaded here. The chart's telling me this stock is doing this, and I'm hoping it's doing that. And that comes with time. And that's where you're like, God damn it, Tim, you've done this before. Get out. And I think that's where 10 years of experience comes in handy. And if you've been in it for a month or 2 months or a year, you don't necessarily, you haven't been there before. You can't say, damn it, Tim, you've done this before, because you haven't done it before.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everyone goes through bad runs as well. And what I'd like you to say here is do you know when you have a girlfriend and you just love the girl and she's got like the best blonde, I'm describing my first girlfriend here. She had beautiful long hair, blonde curly hair. She was the most pretty girl in school. She was the most popular girl in school. In certain times in school, I was a bit of a loser, and it was like that Romeo. It was that perfect time where the guy who was never going to get the beautiful girl got the beautiful girl, and I like fell in love and would kiss listening to like U2 in the red Nissan Micra. Like stuff like this happened, and like it used to kiss all night till 2 o'clock in the morning when we're 18 years old. Like Electrical Storm, U2, like put the back seats down. Nothing too bad happened, but we did what 18-year-olds do. Do you know what I mean? And I was in love. I was deeply, deeply, deeply in love. She was called Jodie, and God, I miss her. Right, and I used to call that Jodie Pody, and she used to call us Stephen Weaving. But the point is, right? But when I broke up with her, I used to call that Jodie Pody Pudding and Pie. But when I broke up with her, right, it was the worst time imaginable. I was devastated. But then the next relationship I had, I got over it a bit faster. And I'd like to make that comparison to trading. When you go through a bad run, when it happens the first time, it's so difficult to find a way of getting out of it, but you find the way eventually. And I'd like to think that the next time you go through a bad run, you think, I'm not going to be the mug again. I'm not going to be the mug again. I'm not, Stephen, you're better than this. I'm not going to let this happen to you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think, again, as much as I like to give you a hard time, I think it's a great analogy because, I mean, we've all been there. I mean, I hate to get all like emotional relationship advice here, but I mean, I remember when I broke up with my first girlfriend. I mean, I was like 15. I thought it was the end of the world. It's like,
how bad did you feel?
Terrible. I mean, it was like you literally thought, you had like suicidal thoughts, and it's like,
what did you do when you had the suicidal thoughts? Like, how can you kind of take us back to the moment of how it happened and what you felt when your ex-girlfriend broke up with you and you felt suicidal?
I mean,
just like how bad was it? Like, tell us the raw details of the terribleness of how you felt.
So, again, like literally had like suicidal thoughts. Now I never like took the next step, but it was like, you're sitting there, you're 15 and you're like, man, I think the world is going to end here. I cried. But like, I hate to admit, I cried.
But like how suicidal, or like I want you to describe the pain to us. Like, how bad was it?
Well, if you'd shut up, I was trying to. Anyway.
No, like, how bad? I want to know how bad it was. Like, tell us how terrible it was. I want to know the exact terribleness of how bad you felt.
I would say it was like a level 11 out of 10 on the terrible scale. So, I mean, but it was like really bad. And you think I'm never, ever going to get over this. And I think that's like that with trading because, then you get the next relationship and you're like, oh, geez, why was I in such a terrible state for weeks? Why was I bawling my eyes out? It wasn't that big of a deal, and then as you have more relationships, you're right. It kind of, you get over it and you realize that, okay, again, I've been here before. I recognize this and it's not that big of a deal.
Does it still feel bad now when you come back and think about it?
No.
When you recount these stories, do you ever feel like you're that young guy again who felt inadequate and bad?
I'm old, jaded, mean.
Do you think you're aggressive and mean now because of the pain that you went through when you were younger?
I think I'm aggressive and mean now because I have to do a goddamn podcast with you once a week. I think that's why I'm aggressive and mean. when I'm in the weight room and I'm doing deadlifts, I've actually got a mural of you on the other side of my weight room, and I just yell at it as I'm doing deadlifts. It wasn't that funny. Okay. All right, I guess it's time to end this podcast. So
you're like, I'm not having any bread because I hate me ex-girlfriend. No bread. No, bread
it's not the ex-girlfriend. It's you. Remember, it's not the ex-girlfriend.
I'm not eating bread because I'm not good enough. Okay, I'm sorry.
So I actually you like to pick on me about this bread thing a lot. I kind of, where, it's like, I feel like you need to expand your comedy inventory.
Repository.
There we go. Yes. So I feel like you need to work on your put downs, your material. You need to expand it, because anytime I'm trying to do you always go back to the bread thing. So I wonder, maybe you could pursue something to expand your level of put downs or material.
I've been thinking, actually, I mean, no matter what, I need to put this trading knowledge to good use. And in the unlikely or likely event that I fail in the shape of trading or scope of trading, I need to put the knowledge into good use, because I'm like a dusty dictionary that will never be picked up. I have all of the knowledge, but none of it's going to get put to good use if I keep on messing up. I'm going to be a dusty trading dictionary book that nobody reads. That's what I'm going to become if I don't sort my discipline out. I'm going to be the backseat of the library. So for me not to be a dusty trading book in the back shelf of a library, then I need to think, well, how else can I put this shit to good use? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I thought about some trading comedy.
Sounds like you said you've been thinking. Sounds like you have an idea here.
Yeah, so I just want to precursor this by saying I think this has been one of the funnier episodes. What do you think? Or do you think it's been fucking dry?
I mean, your jokes weren't any good, but I think it was a good podcast. Yeah, so
I think it's relatively good. I think we covered the market. I think we did some good shizzle. I think it's a good shebang. But I've been thinking about doing. I've been, as well as being the first trader in the world to document his entire journey on YouTube, I've also been thinking about being the first comedic trading podcaster. Because I'm just doing world firsts every day. Because that's who I am, Tim. I'm a freaking trendsetter.
This is a very niche market, but so your thought is, a lot of comedians,
there's only one person in it.
Right. There you go. So
that's
a lot of it is. It's funny. We were talking about the relationships and stuff. So, I mean, a lot of comedians, a lot of their material is based on relationship, kids, wife, girlfriends, whatever. So your idea is to now take the pain of trading and turn it into comedic material.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So do you have any jokes written?
No, but
okay. So I love.
I haven't got any.
That you've got this idea, you've thought about it hard, but you've taken none of the steps to actually implement it.
No, I mean it's typical me. I'm just going into the market without a plan.
So you're going into your comedic career with no plan either.
And it will dive just like the stock. It will dive. No, I've got one. I've got one.
All right, I'm ready.
Have I got one? I don't think I have got one. I can only do like sexual innuendos, maybe. Have you got any water? I've got a good idea. Have you got some water? You've always got water.
Well, no, it's not. My water
get some water. Get some water.
I get coffee.
Okay, Phil, what you've got to do, this is the game. You've got to fill your mouth full with coffee to the brim, and I've got to tell a joke to make you laugh. And if I make you laugh and spit the coffee out, I win, right?
Okay. This is a safe bet.
If you can hold it in without laughing, then you win, right?
Okay.
So
Yep.
I've got and this is totally off the cuff, but your mouth has got to be full.
Okay.
Full.
Yep.
No cheating.
Okay.
And you spit it out on your shirt and your
How long is this joke? I probably can't hold a mouthful for like 5 minutes.
No, you've got 1 minute. So
Okay.
I'm looking at the timer. So the producer can time it. So it's 43:20 this episode now. So go, and I've got a minute to make you laugh.
All right.
Fill it up the top. Full, pausing. Okay. Oh, look at that big spiker. Look at the big spiker.
Hi, this is Aaron, aka Double A Ron from New York City, and I like to go outside and find a stray dog, preferably an aggressive breed like a pit bull or a Rottweiler. Then I get real close, stare it down eye to eye until it starts to chase me. Then I run. That's right, I run while listening to Steven and Tim on the Steady Trade podcast. You can register to win real actual prizes at their website, SteadyTrade.com. And if you really like what you hear, give the podcast a 5-star rating and write a glowing review on iTunes. I did, and this is how we say goodbye in New York City.